7:05. Hi! I hope that y'all can hear me and see me. If there is in the chat box, if you will tell me if you can hear me or see me. This is our very first live webinar, and I must say it's really awkward to just talk to a camera. But I'm so happy you're here. So you get to see my inner circle, my office. I've spent a lot of time organizing in here, but that's going to be awesome because Allie Kasasa, who is joining us today from the purposefulhousewife.com, is going to talk about not really so much about organizing our things, but about only having the things that we truly need so that we can live more intentionally, because I know sometimes I get overwhelmed by stuff. So I am going to turn this over, and we will be very cognizant of your time, and we're super glad to have you. Okay, Allie, you're on.
Thank you, Abby. Hi, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to blab for a second and get my notes up and let everyone kind of roll in. I know that there's sometimes tech issues when people aren't used to showing up to these kinds of things. So my assistant, Sammy, if you could just let everyone know that they need to hit refresh and play, and they should be caught up to about 10 seconds behind where I'm at live. So I'll let you guys get on here, and I'm going to pull up my notes. And guys, if you can hear me and see me and everything seems great, could you just let us know in the chat box? Once we see a couple of people saying, yeah, I can see and hear you, we will move forward and get started. Okay, notes. Okay. I'm just awkwardly giving it a second so everyone can let me know if they've got this. Okay. Thank you, Sammy. Okay, looks like we're good. Usually if one person can hear and see, then everyone can. Okay, I'm going to get started. So everyone, there's going to be a question and answer segment at the end of this. So if I say something and that sparks a question in you, or you want to say something, go ahead and put it in the chat box. And my lovely assistant, Samantha, will collect all of the important questions and comments that need to be addressed, and we will get to that at the end of this. So, hi, my name is Allie Kasasa. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I'm particularly excited about this message that I have for you today because I feel like it's sort of the foundation of why I live the way I do and why I teach what I teach to my audience at the Purposeful Housewife. I do a lot of different classes on different topics that fall under the umbrella of just sort of intentional living. But what I'm speaking on today is really the blood of the whole ministry, and I feel like it's the most important aspect of all of it. So I'm a little extra excited today. I love talking about this part of it. Just a couple of facts about me to help you know who's talking at you today. Like I said, I'm founder and writer at thepurposefulhousewife.com. I'm married. I met my husband in 7th grade, and we now have 4 small kids who are super close in age. They were all born within about 5 years. I'm originally from Southern California, but I recently moved to Northwest Arkansas, and it's so beautiful and so humid, and I love it. So my passion is showing my fellow women how they can stop the chaos and the clutter from taking over and ruling their lives, how they can get out of survival mode, and how they can live on purpose and have an intentional focus on why God put them on this earth, and raising their kids or whatever it is their season and their purpose is at whatever time in their lives they're finding me, and just sort of why God put them on this earth instead of letting all the mundane craziness of life take up all their time and attention. Basically, I believe that we are called to serve our families, our husbands, our kids in the home, and it's a really big, important part of our role as women. But I think a lot of the time that role tends to sort of suck up all the time and energy we have, and really it should be minor. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be all-consuming, and you can streamline your home and your clutter and your life in a way that gives you so much more free time than you could ever imagine you can have, and allows you to really pour into your kids and pour into your husband and your ministry and your work and whatever it is you are called to do. Having said that, if you want to connect with me further, you can head to my website. The link's here on the screen. There's social media icons on there. You can connect with me on there. I do this really fun thing where every day I get on Periscope and I talk and inspire my readers to live more purposefully and with intention. So there's lots of ways to connect with me further after this if you would like to do that. Today I'm speaking to you about how you can live simply and intentionally in a chaotic, cluttered world. I'm also going to show you how a life of less and just sort of a simpler lifestyle ties in with how we are called to live as Christians. We're going to talk about what your stuff has to do with being a good steward, how what you own is taking up your time and what you can do about that, how to be intentional about material things when everyone else is just going with the flow, how to create an uncluttered life so you can focus on what really matters, and finally, how to stop letting the chaos rule you, how to sort of get control and live with intention. So I would love to ask you to please share this webinar with your social media friends. This message is really close to my heart, and I believe there are a lot of overwhelmed women out there who need the light shown on this area of their lives. So I would love if you help me spread the message by clicking the share icons on the page that you're watching this on. I think they're either out to the left or underneath the video. And just invite your social media friends to watch this. It'll be available to watch on the replay through Sunday too. So let's get started. I wanted to start by telling you about my life about 4 years ago and sort of how I got to this place and my story. My husband was working over 90 hours a week just to pay the bills. I was dipping in and out of depression, and I felt like all I did was clean up, wash laundry and dishes, and change diapers. This wasn't really like the normal blur of chaos that just sort of comes with being a mom of little ones. It was really bad. It was like a thick cloud was over me, and I just woke up most days feeling really unexcited. I was very overwhelmed with my life. I spent hours every week picking up and rearranging the toys in the playroom, only for my kids to run in there and dump everything out and come out bored 10 minutes later. I felt like everyone I talked to just sort of laughed off how I was feeling and just, accredited it to just being a mom, totally normal, and I just really didn't think that was okay. The verse, I believe it's John 10:10, kept popping out at me when Jesus says that the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, and I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. And I knew that was the God I served, and I just didn't believe that this depressive captivation I sort of felt it, like I was living in, was abundant life. And I kept trying to kind of go back to like, no, I need to serve my family. This is just motherhood. This is just the chaos that comes with it. I need to shift my focus. But I kept coming back to where in my heart of hearts, I just knew this wasn't abundant life. There was something not right, and I was really overwhelmed, and I just did not feel like I had this down, like I was really living on purpose. So I found myself, kind of saying, go play and getting my children away from me all the time just so I could get somewhat caught up on, the duties that came with my role as a wife and mom and my house. So I had this day where the kids were wanting time with me and I just didn't feel like I could be available to them. I was completely overwhelmed, and I started to feel a meltdown coming. I think we all have been there at some point. So I ended up, not wanting to scream at my kids and just feeling like the tears were coming and I couldn't do anything to stop them. So I went upstairs into my bathroom, locked the door, and just sat on the floor crying. I just started crying and praying, and I remember that I admitted to myself that I just hated this motherhood thing, and it hurt me so much to admit that, and I was just in such a desperate place. I ended up crying out to God in that bathroom, and I remember crying, things like, what is wrong with me? Why am I not good at this? Is this really what you intended for my motherhood? Is this really it? What am I doing wrong? And in that moment, I felt God's presence wrap around me, and I remember my mind being drawn to what it was I really hated. And it wasn't motherhood. It was how I was having to spend it. I was always cleaning up and always overwhelmed. I felt like the mundane tasks were taking up all my time, all my energy, and all my focus, and I wasn't even able to do what I was made to do as a mother and as a wife and just as a person. I felt like the days I decided to really focus on my kids and pour into them, I kind of had to pay a price for having fun by catching up on housework the next day, and I think we can all relate to that too. You have to kind of pay the price for having a good day, and I just wasn't okay with that. Everyone else, like I said, had just kind of seemed to live like this too and accepted it as normal. But that day in the bathroom with God, I just had this feeling like I needed to do something different. I wasn't okay with this. I wasn't doing good this way, and I wanted to find a way to live differently. So I heard my kids asking for snacks and needing me. So I remember that day I just kind of asked God quietly, help me. And I immediately felt him draw my attention to what exactly I was always having to clean up and what exactly was taking up all my time. And it was just stuff. Toys, clothes, washing piles and piles of dishes constantly, trash, books, movies, just stuff, just the stuff that took up my house. And something clicked in that brief moment, and I just knew what I needed to do. So I got my kids situated, and I walked straight downstairs to the playroom. I looked at all the bins and boxes that were full of toys that I was always picking up, and I started to just gut that room. I ended up getting rid of everything that wasn't inspiring imagination or constructive play in my kids. I just sort of figured, if I'm going to do this, if I'm really going to get rid of just the clutter and the crap in my house, I started with the playroom because that was the biggest time sucker for me at that point in my life. I figured I only want to keep what has a real purpose. And I love when my kids are using their imaginations and they're building things and using their minds. So that was just sort of my train of thought and what to get rid of and what to keep at that first day of all this. And when I was done, I did it all in one day, which was insane because it was a lot. But all that was left when I was done were some trains and tracks, some books, some blocks, and my daughter's dress-up clothes. What happened next is what led me here, to teaching on this topic and inspiring others to make the same change in their life. And it was that everything just sort of lifted. I felt like I had been in a rainy city my whole motherhood, and then all of a sudden the clouds parted and the sun shined on my face, and everything got better. My kids weren't wandering into the playroom only to come out after 10 minutes whining that they were bored because they weren't overwhelmed by too much stuff in there. They were going in there and actually playing for hours, and they were getting along better. I noticed that I had a lot more free time. I wasn't spending the bulk of my week picking up toys. I was able to better manage the rest of my house. At this point, I still felt kind of overwhelmed by just, the laundry and the dishes and everything else, but I definitely noticed a lot more time in my day to tackle those things because the kids were, playing, and I wasn't having to maintain their playroom. And their relationships with each other got stronger and better. There wasn't so much bickering going on, which, I know those of us who are moms can relate to that being a time sucker and kind of frustrating. They were playing together. I would overhear them creating these amazing imaginary scenarios in the backyard and just getting along. Everything just got lighter. I was just in love with how this one little change was transforming my kids and our home life. So I decided to keep it going. I thought about the things that took up most of my time, which at that point was dishes and laundry, and I decided to get in there and purge like I did the toys. So I got rid of all the extra dishes aside from our main set, which was just enough for our family and a couple of guests. And I donated everything else. I donated all the clothes that my kids and I owned that didn't fit, that were stained or damaged, or just, weren't my favorite. I really got purposeful about what am I going to keep? What's going to take up space in my house? And at this point, my husband wasn't into it. He had hoarding issues, and he just wasn't on board. So I left his stuff alone and just stuck to my own guns. But all of a sudden, I didn't have to do laundry every day, and I wasn't spending hours standing at the kitchen sink either. I was experiencing so much free time that I actually felt a little guilty. I was so freed up, and I was used to this belief that our society has where the chaos is normal and you're supposed to be overwhelmed. Everyone jokes about it, and it's just a part of being a woman, being a mom. But we were just loving this new freedom we had found. We ended up taking daily walks and hiking every week. I would sit in the backyard with my kids while they played. I was spending intentional time with them and learning their personalities and their hearts. And I started blogging more and following my dream. My marriage even improved greatly because I wasn't such a stressed out basket case anymore. I no longer felt like I had to pay a hefty price for spending quality time enjoying my family. My to-do list was so much shorter and more manageable. The overwhelm had left me, and depression never came back, and joy started to settle in. I had figured out a way to not let the days pass me by, and I finally felt like I was able to serve my family in the home, but not miss out on the rest of life because of that role. I felt like I was living on purpose and that I had put our stuff in its place for good. So that's sort of the main part of my story as it relates to today. But I want to talk to you about how this ties in with a faithful life and what I know about living with less and embracing the simple and living with intention. So what happened as I pursued less clutter and chaos in my life is that I realized that what I was doing already existed, and it was called minimalism. So I know there's a lot tied to the philosophy of minimalism, but it's not at all about the stereotypes attached to it, empty rooms, straight lines, all white, boring, unhomey. It's not about that at all. It's about a life spent pursuing what really matters, saying no to anything that will distract you from that, and intentionally living with less. I love how Joshua Becker describes minimalism. His quote is, "Minimalism is the intentional promotion of the things we most value and the removal of anything that distracts from it." Through my journey, I have seen how closely knit a lifestyle of less is to my faith. The Bible actually has a lot to say on materialism and the love of our possessions and the place they hold in our lives. It's very clear that we're called to be focused on our purpose, on God, and on loving the people in our lives. There are actually an alarming amount of verses on this topic, but I feel like most people live their lives like there are none, and this isn't really talked about very much, other than the love of money, which is really not the same thing. God has been very specific with us regarding our possessions. So I wanted to go over with you guys a few verses that I'm talking about here. So I want to read to you Luke 12:15, and he said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." So life is not about our things, and our society so strongly and loudly tells us otherwise. It's hard when our world is all about, whose house is decorated well and how much square footage you own, and the bigger the better, and, that means more success. But Jesus says, no, life is not about that, and I don't want your focus there. In Luke 12:33-34, "Sell your possessions, give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." We are to be untied to our earthly possessions. God's called us to pour our love into eternal things. He tells us something that we need to remember in this verse about our hearts, that they are in what we treasure most. I think that is very powerful, I think that doesn't really so much have to do with being overwhelmed by your stuff and the clutter aspect of this, but that tells us something of the importance of what I'm talking about. 1 Timothy 6:6-8. Now there is a great gain in godliness with contentment, for we brought nothing into this world, and we cannot take anything out of it. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. Those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, and into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. That one's really intense. But again, just showing you how important this is, how much value the Lord has placed on this in His Word. There's so much more to be gained in focusing on living a godly life and being a content person. Nothing is truly ours, really, and we can't take any of it with us when this life is over, so why prioritize it now? Why are we allowing it to take up all of our time and space now? In Romans... Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, hey, I would love to see in the chat, like, what is the biggest struggle right now with stuff? What is your stuff right now limiting you with? I mean, if you're identifying with any of this, which I think it's amazing, I just keep wanting to type in, amen, sister. But if you would type in the chat, like, what do you think all the extra stuff? Because I'll tell you whenever things changed as far as stuff is after the wreck, I had to clean out a lot of rooms. We had a lot of rooms to clean out, and you realize how unimportant that stuff is. And so for me, I was able to detach some from that. But I know that for people that are very sentimental and when things, it's not the monetary value of the stuff, it's the heart value of the stuff. And that we learn to separate from that. So if you would please, I know I'm the worst when I'm on webinars and I never type in the chat, but I'm going to ask you anyway, if you will type in the chat, what is your struggle? Like, what do you see as your biggest barrier? And then I'm going to go back to my muted amen self. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to see that in the chat, guys. I will address those things at the end. I love having an interactive audience because I want to know what you're thinking, and I don't want to just kind of drop this bomb on you all and then leave. I want to connect with you and sort of do a one-on-one with you and help you through this. So definitely do what Abby said, please. Okay, the next verse I wanted to talk to you about is Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Living intentionally is our calling. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Kind of one of those ruthless points where it just is what it is. We are called to live with intention. We are not supposed to get distracted by this world and what it values. We are called to more than that. Every single one of us has a purpose laid out for us by God Himself. There are no exceptions to that. I don't care what's happened to you, what you've been through, what people have told you. Every single person birthed into this world, and even those who did not get to be born, have a purpose laid out for them by God Himself. Minimalism for me is about removing anything that would keep me from the pursuit of that purpose. So, having said that, let's talk about how you can put this into action in your own life, and a little bit about how I do that. So, our stuff is directly tied to our stress. There are studies that have been done on this. I'm going to talk about the main study that I'm talking about here because it's super interesting. I'll just glaze over it. But it is important to know this stuff. So, there are so many scattered messes that most of us don't even realize are clouding us. Just random little things in drawers, random paperwork on top of the fridge, random items on the dining room table. It adds up and it stresses out our subconscious. And this is where I kind of want to get into, like, I covered, like, holding on to your possessions like they're valuable when they're not. But now I kind of want to get into a little bit of, like, things that you don't necessarily hold as valuable to you or that you're not, obsessing over keeping, but just the clutter that collects over a lifespan. It just is a lot. So the UCLA Center on Everyday Lives and Families did a study on the association of stress and stuff. What they found was an absolute link between high cortisol, which is the stress hormone, in female homeowners, and a high density of household stuff. So the more stuff, the more stress women feel. And it's kind of hilarious because men in the study were typically unbothered and unaffected, which so often leads to disagreements here. And I see this a lot with my clients and my students, where their husbands are just like, I don't get what the big deal is. I don't want to get rid of all of our stuff. And there's sort of like a disconnect there. And so there's why. But the study also revealed that subconsciously women associate a tidy home with a happy and successful family. That's kind of intense. You know, subconsciously that's what we're doing. So the more dishes and laundry pile up, you know, the more stuff accumulates, the more inwardly just unhappy women feel. And one more thing in this study that I found super interesting is that U.S. consumers only account for 3% of the world's children, yet we buy 40% of the world's toys. These toys are fighting for attention and space, along with trophies, photos, artwork, stuff in the whole rest of your house. Forget the kids stuff. The whole house is a mess. And, you know, that's just speaking to toys and kids stuff. That's nothing to do with the other things in your home that take up space, whether you have kids or not. But it's just interesting because we are such a consumerist society, and all of your stuff in your home is creating more work for you, more to pick up, more to dust, more to wash, more to fold, and directly causing your stress and general overwhelm and unhappiness in your family life. So basically, this matters. It's not just a little side note or something you can kind of do what you will with. We are called to live intentionally, and we are called to choose joy. And psychologically, we really can't when we're overwhelmed with our stuff. So why does our stuff make us stressed? It's because, whether we think so or not, every single thing we own takes something from us in one way or another. Maybe it's, you know, time and energy, maintaining the item, picking it up, putting it away, using it, you know, whatever, and space. Everything we allow into our homes takes up space. And as women, it just all sort of collects in the back of our minds and our subconscious and is stressing us out. So let me ask you, and feel free to respond in the chat. Have you ever gotten, you know, maybe everything or just one thing, like all gutted and just like organized, and, you know, you kind of like redid something, you just like got everything all rearranged and organized, only for everything to fall apart within a week or maybe even less? I have two readers who both told me that they've paid hundreds of dollars to hire a professional organizer to come in and help them with their overwhelm. And for both of these women, the organizers came in, they had them spend even more money on pretty bins and shelves and boxes to store their stuff better, teaching them the mentality of out of sight, out of mind, you know, be organized, let's sort and arrange everything. And both of these women who are readers of mine told me that within a week or less, they were back to feeling overwhelmed. This happens because organization is not a solution. It's just moving things around to be stored in a more appealing way. Yes, an organizer will have you get rid of trash and things like that, but I think there are so many articles and books written on organization, and it's because it's never really just taking care of the problem once and for all. It always comes back. Because when you just get organized, the stuff you're rearranging ends up back on the floor, back on the dining room table, back wherever you don't want it, because keeping your stuff organized is incredibly time-consuming and difficult to keep up with. So it just all ends up falling apart within, you know, whatever amount of time. What needs to happen is you have to eliminate the unnecessary stuff altogether. Purging is a solution. Purging is a permanent solution to a chronic problem. Organization is just like a Band-Aid over it. If you want things to change, to get a lot simpler, and to be able to focus the bulk of your time and attention on what matters most to you and what your purpose is, you have to purge. Purging is getting into the rooms of your home and decluttering all the excess that's built up over time and has been causing stress and overwhelm in your life. So that's what I mean when I say purge. It's going into every room of your house and questioning, why am I allowing this to take up space? Why am I giving this item some of my time and energy and focus? And, you know, to ask yourself, you know, pick up every item, you know, do I really need this? When was the last time I used it? Is this item adding to my purpose in life? And I know that seems eccentric and dramatic, but that's what you have to do to break the normal thought process that we've become accustomed to and snap out of it and get into a different kind of living that is so intentional and so purposeful that you will almost never have to clean your house. That's the reality. That's my reality. It is so freeing and so liberating and amazing. You have to get dramatic and ask that about every single thing and do this thing for real in order to get to that new place, in order to get from horrible A to amazing, liberating B. And I go way deep into the technicalities of taking this kind of action in my decluttering course, but those are the key questions to ask yourself about what is taking up space in your home. So let's talk a little about how to be intentional about material things when everyone else is just sort of going with the flow. Sorry, let me get my notes on this part here. Okay. So when you choose to live simply, when you choose a life of less, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be the odd one out. We already are in a lot of ways as Christians, but even more so now. People do not understand our family and our choice to live with only what we really need, what lines up with our purpose, and what adds joy to our lives. Most people have accepted the buildup of stuff and the chaos and the clutter as just a normal part of their lives. I found this is especially true with mothers. Like I talked about before as a part of my story, most women just seem to think that dealing with total chaos and always cleaning up and just organizing your stuff is normal, and that's just what you do. They don't realize that you can eliminate the problem and most of the stress completely by getting rid of the excess. It's sort of like this amazing secret. Once you discover it and you kind of realize that what I'm saying is true and can actually happen for you, you get hooked on it and you want to just implement this philosophy in every area of your home and your life. It's kind of addicting, and that's why when I did the toy room at first, I kind of caught on to something and then took it all the way. And like I said before, an intentional life is our calling. We are called to not be conformed to this world, to not do things the way everyone else does. We are called to be set apart and live holy and on purpose. This absolutely applies to our stuff and our homes and our families, our calendars, our relationships, everything. But since we're focusing on our homes and our stuff today, we'll hone in a little more on that part of it. But being intentional about what you own and what you allow to take up your space and time is really hard. I'm not going to lie to you about that. It's being mindful when you're at Target shopping. It's questioning all the things you never thought twice about taking up room on your shelves. But I encourage you, question the way you've been doing things up till now. Live set apart, live simply, live intentionally. Be mindful of your space, because that's what takes up your time and your energy away from your purpose, away from your spouse and your kids. So I want to talk a little bit about how to create an uncluttered life so that you can focus on these things that really matter. I know that this can feel really overwhelming and maybe even impossible when you kind of look away from your phone or your computer and look at your house and you're just surrounded by clutter and chaos. Trust me, I have been there. I ended up locked in the bathroom on the floor because I have been there. But this is possible. All things are possible with He who gives you strength. God will give you strength to fulfill your purpose. He's not going to let you hear this. You're here for a reason listening to this message. He's not going to drop this on you and then be like, good luck. He wants to help you, and He will give you the strength you need. This is possible. God honors holy intentions. So press through, and I just encourage you to make this happen for yourself and your family. And when you get that overwhelmed feeling, just start. I know that sounds like kind of like an uneventful advice, but really just start. Don't let excuses, stress, or overwhelm get in the way for one more day. Just schedule some time to hack away at the clutter and just make it happen. You don't have to take it on all at once. You can take bite-sized chunks out of it and just slowly move forward at a pace that fits your life. Maybe you can tackle one wall per weekend, or take it 3-hour chunks at a time, every Monday morning. Just do something. Something is so much better than nothing. I always tell my one-on-one clients when they're just super overwhelmed at the idea of tackling their homes to just pick something up, anything. look at it and ask those 3 key questions that I mentioned earlier. Do I really need this? When was the last time I used it? If it's more than a month or so, or 2 months, it kind of depends on the item, get rid of it. Is this item adding purpose to my life? Is this moving me towards my purpose in life? Move forward with the item out of the answer to those questions. If something is not of value to you, needed by you, or adding to your life, you don't need it. That's as simple as that. If you can make a big step toward having more time to pour into those who really matter in your life by moving forward out of the answer to those questions, with your items. So for me, to get a little personal and give an example, I know my purpose is to stand by my husband and do life with him, to raise my 4 kids to be world changers, and to minister to my fellow women through my words and through my teaching. I know that. I cannot stress this enough. If you take nothing else away from this, take this. Living a minimalist lifestyle is the only way I can make all of those things happen. It is a lot. Keeping a marriage up and running and healthy and happy, raising 4 little kids who are, less than 6 years apart, all together from 1 to 4, and running a business and a ministry by myself from home. There is no way I could do even half of this if it wasn't for being intentional with my stuff and cutting the excess and streamlining what doesn't matter and just having what I need to live, being content, and moving forward with my purpose. It is the only way I get stuff done. Without the distraction of having the TV on all the time, without mountains of laundry needing to be washed, without loads of dishes needing to be rinsed, without tons of toys, books, and random things just strewn about, needing to be picked up and put away all the time, I would be lost, distracted, and not at all purposeful. And that's how I was before. I simply could not live out my purpose to its fullest potential without a streamlined, simple home and life. Living this way allows me to live with intention. And so I know this is a lot, and I know thinking of how to overcome the overwhelm in your home so that you can live more purposefully is, ironically, really overwhelming in itself, especially when you are already so overwhelmed. I know that feeling of standing in your house and just looking at all the stuff and just not knowing where to start. So I'm here for you guys today. I want to talk with you. If you want to hang out and stay in the chat box, I'll be here answering questions. I want to connect with you all. But I do want to tell you, as a part of my purpose in my work, and as the main part of what I do, I have put together a course that's designed for the woman who is overwhelmed and just wants to simplify. When you apply what I'm teaching you, you can have a house that doesn't suck up all your time and energy. It's a guarantee. If you do what I am teaching, you will have your life change. You can be ready for company to drop by almost always, which is a great feeling. You can have the freedom to spend time doing things other than cleaning, making memories with your kids, making things happen. There's so much joy on the other side of this. Living intentionally is deeply satisfying because that is what we were made to do. And I think that that's a really positive message that God has for you guys today. Once we get off that treadmill of owning what everyone else owns and doing the same thing everyone else does and just being in that chaotic routine that Americans live in and just being as busy as everyone else is, our eyes are open to how much we're missing, and life just starts to feel really good again. And I think that has to do with what Abby was saying earlier, that when you go through and you realize how much stuff, you just sort of realize how it didn't matter and how much you were missing. If you're in the season of raising your kids, you don't have to be the mom who yells. You don't have to be tense and stressed out. You don't have to be remembered as scary mommy. This takes such a load off. It is a heavy burden that you didn't really realize was so heavy until it's lifted. And all of a sudden, you're not such a stressed out mom anymore, a stressed out wife anymore, a stressed out daughter, friend, person anymore. So the course that I've created about all of this is called Purge Your Entire Home, and it is what the title is. In it, I show you how to get every single area in your house completely decluttered so that you don't have to clean up at all as often, so that you can like live this out and start to see these results. I show you exactly what to keep and what to get rid of so that you don't have to stress about figuring that out, because that can be really time consuming as you go through your whole house. I go through helping you work through the hard things like sentimental items, photo albums, kids' artwork, the garage, the dreaded garage, the clutter catch-all. Literally everything is in the course. I show you what to do if your husband's not on board with this whole thing. Because like we talked about at the beginning of this class with that UCLA study, most men just don't get it because they weren't designed to get it. And I understand that being, I was in that place because my husband took a couple of years to sort of just get it and climb on board with all of this. So I know what to do in that situation. In the course I show you exactly how to revamp your whole house and its setup so that you can experience all these benefits of this lifestyle that we're talking about and just walk in that freedom and live with intention in your motherhood and your life. Purge Your Entire Home is the course I spent over 5 months creating. It releases this Saturday, and it's for women who feel overwhelmed by their roles and their homes and their lives, and they just want to find a way to spend a lot less time cleaning up and more time intentionally focused on what really matters. And like I said in the beginning, cleaning and managing your home is a really important role and a part of your, entire role as a woman, but it doesn't need to take up the bulk of your time. And unfortunately for most women, including me a few years ago, it does. My course is designed to end that. I don't want you to spend another day barely getting by, struggling to get a hold on the chaos or feeling like you're not living with intention. This is an online course that you can take on any device. It's on a high-end, really easy to navigate platform. You can use your Android, your iPhone, your laptop, your tablet, whatever. So the course has been priced at $267, but for today's audience, I've lowered it to $137, so you get $130 off, and it's going to change everything for my students. Like I said, it releases Saturday, and I'm going to also give you a big stack of bonuses for those who purchase today to give you, some things to work on right away. So with the bundle for today, you get $130 off Purge Your Entire Home. You'll also get my ebook. It was number 2 on Amazon's bestseller list when it first came out, and it's called Mama Needs a Reboot. You'll also get Intentional Motherhood, which is a PDF guide to putting technology in its place in your life and not letting it steal away your motherhood. You'll get my recorded web class that I've done on how to raise unplugged kids in a tech-obsessed world. This was sort of a fan favorite, and it's just really kind of mind-blowing, and it's really actionable and helpful. And you'll also get the class recording of an uncluttered kitchen, which is taking this minimalism philosophy and applying it to your kitchen. So you'll get these bonuses sent to you within the same day of you ordering the course. And like I said, the course is releasing Saturday. You'll get an email when it's ready for you to start working through it. Super easy to get access and do all that. And again, you're getting $130 off along with these bonuses. So you just need to click that red button under the video and it'll take you to the page. There's also a separate link for those of you who need a payment plan. I have set that up for you guys. The payment plan is with the discount as well. And Sammy, my assistant, can share that link with you guys in the chat box if you would like to not pay the full $137 right up front and split that up into a few payments. Because I've been there too, and I understand the need for that. So I can answer all your questions about the course. In short, there's 6 sections in the course. I call them modules. And under every module, there's lessons to walk you through all the specifics of the areas of your house. So you'll get the foundation module, which will give you everything you need to kind of have that firm foundation to stand on as you work through your house because it is so overwhelming. There's the Jumpstart module, which is great if you can't really dive all the way in right now. Maybe you're in like a season of life where you just can't really take it all on right now. This is a great module for just sort of like getting the surface done and getting out from under the overwhelm so that you have more free time and you're able to maybe dive more in later. I address the worry of, what if I need this later? I'm afraid to get rid of it. Preparing everyone who lives with you for going through this transition. What if your husband's not on board? Finding time to declutter when you're super busy. Just everything. And then every other module is just full of every single closet, area, room in your home, all the different kinds of sentimental items, garage, the attic, every area of your home just completely purged. So that's what the course will do for you. And again, if you have any questions, that's what I'm here for. This is what I love to do, just help people get out from under the overwhelm in their homes and their lives. So I hope this class inspired you. I hope you feel like you can walk away with hope and take action to live with intention in your day-to-day life. And I'm going to really quick make you wait an awkward second so I can hop over to the question page that my assistant has been collecting everything in for me and see if there are any questions that need attending to. Take a water break while I wait. Okay. Okay. I don't know if it's just not loading or what. Sammy, were there any questions that I needed to answer, or are we good?
Hey, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. There was one question about, let's see. Hang on. Now I've lost it.
Oh, it's okay. Can you just, are you able to scroll up and find it, or do you need me to do it?
I am. No. Basically, it was about, Amanda was asking about not having to do the dishes or laundry all the time. Mm-hmm. And let's see, let me read the exact question. We can't get rid of cooking meals and wearing clothes in order to not have to do. So what was she missing? Like, can you kind of elaborate on that?
Elaborate on how I don't have to do laundry and dishes all the time?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, basically, what I did, and I go into all of this more in depth, I didn't want to spend the whole webinar going into everything, so this is all on my blog and in the course. But with clothing, to talk about laundry first, I've got, like I said, I've got 4 little kids and a husband who had previously had a very grungy job, so there's lots of laundry to do. What I did was I went into every dresser, every pile of dirty laundry, just everything, and I asked those 3 key questions. You know, do we really need this? I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but most people wear 20% of their clothes 80% of the time, and then we very rarely wear the other 80%. We're just kind of holding on to it because, oh, I might fit in that soon, or it looks so great on me, but it really doesn't fit my lifestyle. Like if you're just, when I was a stay-at-home mom and I was overwhelmed, I had a ton of clothes that were super fancy. I didn't need those, or gold clothes, gold jeans, just holding on to things that it's not, you're wasting space. And those things kind of end up getting back mixed in the laundry, and you're washing things that you don't even need. So in answer to the laundry part of it, I went through and I got rid of everything we did not really need, and even then maybe some things that we did kind of, use, but just wasn't really necessary. I kind of limited it to a certain amount of clothing, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 shirts for each kid, a few pairs of pants, just the basics, because I wanted to just get out of the overwhelm and just like declutter and start fresh. And that is what changed everything. So now my day-to-day life looks like I throw in, a little load of laundry every couple days because we don't have tons of clothes. So, I do have to keep them clean so we can mix and match and rewear and everything. But I don't have like laundry mountain. I don't have that anymore. It's gone because I got rid of it. And just being really intentional about shopping in that sense. And then also for the dishes, I went through, just to get really specific for you, Amanda, I went through and I got rid of all the dishes that I didn't need, everything, big appliances that I didn't really need, like if you have a KitchenAid mixer, you really don't need a hand mixer. Got rid of the hand mixer, got rid of all the extra dishes, and what we do now is we use our dishes, we rinse them, we put them in the drying rack next to the sink, and that's it. When we need to eat again, we use those same dishes. Because when you have like spare dishes and extra sets and all these things in your cupboard, people in your home are way more likely to open the cabinet and get a clean dish out before they ever rinse a dish. That's how you end up with piles and piles of dirty dishes at the end of the day, where you're standing at the sink like having to stand there and wash it, and it's gone. It is just gone. You get rid of it because you never needed it anyway.
Love that. Love that. I know. I am, because when you do have the extras, it is so easy just to leave them in the sink. That makes perfect sense. And then also there was another question about entertaining. Can you still entertain? Yes. Things like that.
Yep. Yes, I love to entertain. We don't get to do it as much because we moved away from everybody we know. But, you know, with entertaining, I talk about this in the course, too, to be more detailed for what you need. But for my life, when we entertain, we're super laid back, paper plates. I also do have a small extra set of glass dishes that I don't store in my cabinet because people will grab it and use it before they rinse a dish. And so our set of dishes is like 8, and we have 6 people in our home, and only 2 of us use glass plates. The kids get the little kiddie plates. So if we were to have, you know, 2 couples over, we have enough glass dishes. You never really need what you think, what you're like imagining up in your head that you will need for some elaborate party you might throw. So if, you know, but if you really do that, if you have a lot of parties and you don't use paper plates because they're fancy, then great, keep those extra dishes. The solution is for you is just to store them somewhere else. But for us, 1 set of dishes, we're all good. Paper plates for company because we do barbecues, and that's the solution for me. Was there anything else, or are we good? I know we have a smaller audience today, so I didn't know if there was others. Let's see. I do use a dishwasher. I know you're asking, Sammy, but I do use a dishwasher. I just was saying that we eat our meals on the plates, and then we rinse them off and set them in the drying rack just so they can be used that same day. But yeah, I have a dishwasher. Sentimental stuff is very hard. I see that comment. It's just really hard, but, you know, I have solutions for all of that, really, really good solutions for all of that. You know, there's a lot you can do. This would just take like another hour, so I'm not going to get into it here, but, you know, there's a lot you can do with photos, you know. It's really about balancing like what you really want to keep and just like tear your heart out to get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. This isn't supposed to be a torture session. It's supposed to be helpful. But a lot of things that we just kind of want to remember but don't really need the physical item, you can take a picture of the picture and keep it on the cloud instead of in person. You can use sentimental furniture and items to decorate. Again, you could take a picture of it and store it on the cloud, but then go ahead and get rid of the original. There are so many solutions for sentimental things. Don't let that hold you back from making this change in your life. There's really no need to hold on to sentimental items and keep that clutter in your home because you're afraid of, you know, what that would mean for you, of losing the memory or of having to get rid of all your stuff. It's not about that. It's not about tormenting yourself and getting rid of everything that you hold dear. I have a really good friend, Jen, who is a minimalist and has applied this to her life and actually ended up moving into a tiny home. And she collected little shot glasses with her dad her whole life. Every time they traveled, they collected these little shot glasses. And she didn't like drink like crazy or anything. It was just a collection that they did together. And she has her giant, massive collection of little shot glasses from all over the world that she collected with her dad, who's now passed away, because it's sentimental to her. Obviously, you don't really need a collection of shot glasses, but it's not about that. It's about what brings you joy, what is adding to your life. And that collection of shot glasses for Jen is that. So she kept it, and it takes a prominent spot in her house. Yeah, she has very little amount of clothing and dishes because she's a minimalist, but you know, she loves those shot glasses and she wanted to keep them. So it's really not about here are the rules and you can't have this and you can only have this many of that. And that's not what my course is about either, because I believe that you should tailor this whole idea to fit your life. And like Jen, you know, apply this where you feel like, yeah, you know, I can do this here. But over here, if this brings you pain to get rid of it, then don't. Paperwork clutter. My kids, I have both. I have one child in traditional school where there is so much paperwork, and my 3 boys are homeschooled. Well, the 2 that are old enough to be doing any school. So I kind of have like my foot in both camps. Paperwork clutter, my rule for myself is I just deal with it when it comes in. If there's a school paper that needs my attention, I give it the attention it needs, sign it, return it, or look at it, take in the information, add it to my calendar. But it does stay in my daughter's backpack, clutter until I can get to it. Then when I get to it, I make sure I deal with it all the way through. Sometimes I just snap a picture of it and upload it to my Google Cloud, where I store paperwork and important like tax papers and things like that. But otherwise, I just take the information, add it to my calendar, call the person that needs to be called, doing whatever I need to do via that paper, and then get rid of the original. Does living simply and intentionally equal living without personality in your home? I noticed that the room here doesn't have anything on the wall. Does the rest of your house look like this room? Nope. This is my bedroom, and we just moved, so I have not yet decorated. I do not decorate minimalist at all. I have a modern taste, like mid-century modern. I've got a wall in my living room that has a giant bicycle art on it that takes up the entire huge wall. I love throw pillows. I love shelves and books and little knickknacks, but everything that I own means something to me. It's valuable to me. I love it. I don't paint because I rent, but I used to paint all my walls, and it's about your personality. There's nothing about this that is the rule and you cannot do this. You bring your personality and your decor and anything you want into this. This is about freeing up your time. It's not about having to decorate, because minimalism is a decor style that I'm really not a huge fan of because it's very cold and unwelcoming. But no, this is just my sad, boring little bedroom that hasn't gotten any attention yet. I'm sorry, Linda, that you're not hearing anything. It must be your computer. I don't know. There's no reason that would be happening. Hopefully you can catch the replay. Okay, it looks like we're good. So, and you guys, if you have any other questions, always email me. I love getting emails. So definitely, I welcome emails if you have a question. I don't want you to feel like you missed me or you thought of something later and you couldn't, get to it. So my email is allie@thepurposefulhousewife.com, and you can just send me something over there if you'd like to get in touch with me. Good. I'm glad that helped you. Yes, Linda, hopefully she'll be able to watch the replay, but yeah, that sometimes it's just the other person's computer or their browser. So yeah. Okay, guys, I think we're good. I don't see any more questions coming in. If you found this helpful, remember to share it with the icons on the left of the video, and spread this message to your overwhelmed friends. Abby, thank you so much for having me speak to your audience today. I'm so thankful.
Oh, I'm so glad that we did this. You were fantastic. I'm so excited.
Good.
I'm going to have to go tackle some closets today. That's my game plan. Okay,
Good.
guys, thank y'all so much for coming and coming to the very first webinar. Whoop, whoop. And I'm super excited to get started because it's just a real need, because I do feel overwhelmed. I'm one of those people that feels like I'm more successful if my house is clean, and I want people to be able to come in. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I'm excited for your course. I can't wait.
Yeah, good.
Okay, guys, we hope y'all have a great rest of the day. We'll see you later.